Charles and I were young when we got married, and of course we didn't realize how young until years later. Our daughters used to ask us how old we were, and we would always say almost 20. And it took a few years for them to finally do the math and say, almost 20, that meant you were 19, y'all were teenagers. But we looked out, we kind of raised each other, and we sort of had, the same background. I never believed that Charles was going to die. There was a time when everything was just so intense that I could barely walk through a grocery store or really any public place without just wanting the world to know the pain that I was feeling. And it kind of felt like if I could just smack somebody, then maybe I could send that message. You feel like the world should stop. My world stopped. Why didn't everybody else's world stop? The guilt was pervasive, and it started immediately because it was my job not to let Charles die. The one rule I wanted God to break more than any other was just to undo it all. It was fine with me if we just pretended that this never happened. I would take it for a day. If I could only have Charles back for a day, I wouldn't tell anybody. Like all of those promises that I made to God. And this conversation that I heard between Charles and God, Charles is telling God, she's feeling bad because she wants to go get a pedicure, but she's not sure she should. And then she saw this story on 48 Hours, and, they're giving this lady a hard time because she's doing the same thing. And God's like, Charles, the whole story on 48 Hours was they think she killed her husband. And Charles is like, well, yeah, Becky kind of thinks she killed me. And so pretty quickly, even in anger, even in the depths of despair, even when I was crying, I began to sort of hear these conversations. And of course, they always had something to do with what I was doing at the moment. And I couldn't not write them down. That got them out of my head onto a piece of paper. And I think the more I did it, the more compelled I was to continue doing it. When a friend of mine said, you should take all this stuff that you've been scribbling and put it together, at least in book form, so that your children and grandchildren could have it to read someday. I thought, that's probably a good idea. And so that's when I went looking for all of that and found those pieces of paper just piled everywhere. But the day my daddy died was the day that I got the email from the publishing company about the book. I had not even made it home from the hospital. And so I pulled the car over on the side of the road when I realized this email was coming in, and I read it. And I just looked out the windshield and I'm like, well, Daddy, just get up there and stir the pot. And so that was the beginning of the publishing company asking to develop the book, and that's what we've done. And so I think in this relationship with God and the book, that has given me peace, and I have really needed that peace.